I would say the next big impactful hire is there's actually a book called Rocket Fuel, and it's written by this guy named Gino Wickman, who wrote Traction, which you might have talked about on this podcast. But the idea behind Rocket Fuel is that usually the founder is a visionary and they need to find an integrator, right? Whether you want to call them an operations person, whatever. Once we made that hire, we quadrupled, right? And, at that point, we're just like, wow, okay, this person's going to help implement every idea that I have, and they're going to keep things organized.
Bright Ideas episode number 350.
Hey, I know what'll cheer you up. Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast, where we let proven experts help you to find the next bright idea to implement in your business today. And now, here's your host, Trent Deersmith.
This is unbelievable. Its true force has never been fully understood.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bright Ideas Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Trent Deersmith, and I have one really simple job: to find super interesting, successful entrepreneurs, get them to come onto the show and explain to you and explain to me exactly what they did to be successful, with enough detail that you can pull out those actionable golden nuggets that you can then implement in your business right after listening to the episode. And today, my goal is to do exactly that for you, as always. Before we welcome my guest, Eric, onto the show, two very quick housekeeping announcements. Number one, if you are the founder of an e-commerce business and you'd like to hang out with other founders, we have a thriving Facebook community where you can do exactly that. Join it by going to brightideas.co/Facebook. And also for select guests, we do live streams after the podcast goes live to give you, the audience, an opportunity to interact directly with my guest and ask questions. And if you would like to get notifications of those live streams, either make sure you're in the Facebook group I just mentioned or become an email subscriber, and you can do that by visiting the homepage of brightideas.co. And now a word from our sponsor for today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Flowster. If you run an e-commerce business and are struggling to effectively delegate your highly repetitive work to your team, Flowster's workflow management software and pre-made e-commerce playbooks make hiring, training, and delegating to your team an absolute breeze. Check it out today at flowster.app. So on the show with me today is Eric Sue, and he's the chairman of content intelligence software called ClickFlow, which helps you to grow your traffic while looking like a genius. And who doesn't like to look like a genius? He also owns an ad agency called Single Grain and has worked with companies such as Amazon, Airbnb, Salesforce, and Uber to acquire more customers. He hosts two podcasts, Marketing School with Neil Patel and Leveling Up, which combined have over 43 million downloads to date. He also speaks frequently around the world on marketing and SaaS. Eric, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks very much for making some time to come be on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trent. Should be exciting.
So we're in a very interesting period of time, economically speaking, thanks to the pandemic. There's a lot of undesirable things going on. A lot of people are losing their jobs. And you've got this thing called Launchpad that I want to talk about first. And so for the folks who aspire to start a business or replace a job in some way, shape, or form, Launchpad is maybe something they could use. What's Launchpad?
Yeah, so it's not a product or anything. It is a phrase. I mean, it's a concept that was I was speaking with a guy named Andrew Wilkinson, who actually owns a portfolio of internet businesses, and he actually started with his design agency, and they started doing really well. But he realized that the revenue was not very scalable. So he basically started taking the profits from that business and started reinvesting it or buying other internet businesses. And now collectively, his entire portfolio does over $100 million a year. And he's not really in the day-to-day on these businesses. He just focuses on reading a lot. He focuses on strategy and helping, the operators of his company. So the idea here is a Launchpad business could be an agency, right? Or it could be like a drop shipping type of business. And then, drop shipping, there tends to be there's a limit at a certain point, and you're not going to make, you're not going to become a billionaire that way. Let's just put it that way, right? Yeah. Same thing with agencies. Typically what happens is you are going to cap out, or your business model just isn't good for most agencies because for every new customer that you have to add, well, guess what? You have to, a certain percentage of that goes towards more employees, right? So it's just not as scalable as, let's say, software revenue, or maybe subscription revenue, like from memberships or things like that. So you want to continue to level up. So you start with the Launchpad first, and you get stronger and stronger. And then at a certain point, it's like, okay, let's think about products. Let's think about building marketplaces, or you want to go all the way up to, hey, let's start building rockets. You can do that, but that's the career progression that I think people can continue to level up through.
So to be clear, then, for someone who is either looking to start their first business or unemployed and looking to start their first business, an agency can be a great launch pad to get them going, because it doesn't cost a lot of money to get started. You can prospect for your clients, and you can deliver services either yourself, or, as I like to do, you can hire people in non-US locations to take advantage of lower costs of labor and lower costs of living to get them to execute all the work for you.
Yep, 100%.
Okay. So you bought a company called Single Grain for $2. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I think this was in 2012 or 2013. So I was leading marketing at an online education startup, and this agency called Single Grain, which was an SEO agency at the time, was getting hit hard by Google's big algorithm updates. So there's an update called Google Panda, and there's one called Penguin. It basically changed overnight. It rendered their business useless. And so I was tasked, because at that online education company, we had a great product, we had a great CEO. We just needed to add great marketing, and we were able to turn that company around. But the challenge here was, this was a business where the main business no longer worked. And, basically it's like, okay, how are you going to turn this around where the business is not good anymore? And, it could very well be that the people are actually invalid for where we're trying to go next. So, can I turn this burning ship around? I looked at the agency from the outside, and I was like, this is a house of cards. And I was like, but man, if I can turn it around, that would be great. So they had me come in, and I came in as a number 2 for the company. And basically what happened was, within a year, there were 4 other partners in the business. I owned 10% at the time, and they all decided that they wanted out, and they were just, hey, let's just shut down the thing or whatever. I said, hey, why don't I continue on? And actually, Neil, my podcast co-host, was actually one of the partners at the time. And he said, hey, you should get out. There's no brand equity here. This is a sinking ship. Like, you're better off going somewhere else. And, it made a lot of sense. I think it's very sensible. Mm-hmm. And, oftentimes I think you just have to go with your gut. I was like, I think I'm going to do it. So what I did was I offered $1 for 10% for Neil's shares, and another $1 for one of his other partners with his other software business. And then the rest were negotiated through, we're going to pay out through the profits of the company, with the contingency that if the company failed, I would owe nothing. So by the way, at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was 27 years old. So I was just coming up with all these random terms, but they accepted. And so that's how I got Single Grain, and I own 100% of the business now. And thankfully, we're able to turn the ship around, but it was a lot of work. So
where's Single Grain today in terms of revenue?
Yeah, Single Grain's revenues, we're, 8 figures. The types of companies we work with would be like the ones you mentioned, a lot of tech companies, a lot of SaaS companies. And in the very beginning too, by the way, the blog was getting about 3,000 or 4,000 visits a month. Now we get, better traffic, about 350,000 visits a month or so. So that's been a good boost in terms of lead gen as well. So we've got good volume.
Okay. So you covered a lot of stuff there, and I want to unpack some of it and go down some rabbit holes if we may. So for someone who likes the idea of Launchpad, and they've just heard what you've done with your agency, and they're thinking, man, I would be super happy to have an outcome like that. So I want to start an agency. What would be your advice to the person who they're interested in marketing, obviously, otherwise you're not going to start an agency. So they've probably been listening to podcasts and reading blogs and doing all that kind of thing, but they don't know how to get started. They don't know how to get the first client. And obviously you're not really in business until you have the first client. How do you get the first client? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of things I can say. I think there's it's much deeper than just one answer. So I'm going to give a couple resources first. So there's a podcast called Two Bobs. It's number 2 BOBS. That's a great podcast for agency people. And there's another podcast called Build a Better Agency podcast, right? And we actually put together. You can just Google it. There's I think it's still called Agency Accelerator, or we might have renamed it the Consulting School. But basically once a month, and I did this earlier this week, I'll actually hop on a call and help agency owners. So you can I think it's Consulting School now. You can pick that up if you want. And then there's a great book called Win Without Pitching. So I'm consolidating a lot of these resources because I think a lot goes into getting your first client. But what I would say is, look, if you are good at web design, or let's say you're good at running paid advertising, what I used to do when I had no clients and I had no audience, nothing, data.com, which is, I think it's now defunct. But anyway, I'll look for data sources where I could find a lot of emails. I'll make my dream 100 list of customers that I want to reach out to. And what I would do is every day, I was making 20-minute videos on what they should be doing with their site, right? And, now there's a lot of different tech you can use. You can use hunter.io to find emails. You can use Loom, and you can make 5-minute videos, and it's just super fast, right? And so I'd reach out to people and say, hey, these are the top 3 things that are wrong with your site or whatever. Here's what you should do about it. What ends up happening is people are like, oh, I didn't know that. Can you just do it for me? And what you're looking for when you're reaching out to these people, whether it's through email or whether it's through LinkedIn, you are, maybe looking to reach out to maybe 40 to 50 people a day, and you're looking for maybe a 10 to 20% response rate, which is very much what one of our students is getting right now. And he's like, dude, that's been helpful. Like, that's all I do right now. I reach out with, hey, here's a couple things that are wrong, like a diagnosis, and then sometimes I might just offer like a free audit or something like that, and a lot of people bite. So,
So in the beginning, for the first 1 or 2 clients, do you think it's more important to try and charge the money, or more important to get a raving testimonial?
So what I would do, and that's a great question. I mean, there's a couple ways you can play it, and I'm sure so you reach out to people and you say, hey, look, I'll do this. I'll work for you for free for a month, but at the end of the month, you can ask for a testimonial, or say, hey, at the end of the month, I want a contract or whatever. I think if you really need the money and you need to put food on the table, then I would do that. I think if you were going the safer route and you had a full-time gig and you just started doing this, I would probably aim for the testimonials first. But I think it just depends on how you're feeling with whoever you're talking to.
And do you think that all of the email outreach needs to be done by the founder, or is that something that would be easily systematized and delegated to a worker outside the U.S. that you could employ for, $3 or $4 an hour?
It's a nice tee up there. So I would say, look, I think in the very beginning, the founder-led sales is where it should be at until you get the system down. And I'm sure you explained this, but you get the system down first, it's locked in, and then you hand it off. It could be people that are offshore. You can arbitrage, the price there. I think the number one mistake a lot of first-time founders make, and sometimes I repeat this myself as well, it's just not verifying, right? So Ronald Reagan says, trust but verify. So I think there's a lot of that needs to happen, and you get the machine going, and you have a project manager running it, and they're running with the other people, then great.
So obviously people who've been listening to my show for some time and following me for some time know that I'm a big believer in using offshore labor, because it comes if you've got great systems, it works exceedingly well, and it comes at a fraction of the cost. And the prospecting effort is really mind-numbingly boring. It's the same thing over and over again. And so I think that is a fantastic way to start to get appointments in your calendar. So in terms of service offerings, I have my view on this, but I'm curious on yours. If you were starting an agency now, because you don't want to be everything to everybody. That's a way to be nothing to nobody. If you had to specialize in one particular practice area, what would that be?
So on the single grain side, they specialize in working with SaaS companies. So, very much they're a SaaS marketing agency. And, the work we do, it's not like we don't say, we're full service or whatever. It's just strictly, we run paid ads, and then we'll do SEO work. That's it. We don't try to be everything to everyone. And that level of focus actually goes a long way, because, the conversations it actually gives prospects a lot of they're relieved when they hear that you specialize in SaaS and you can actually, speak the language that they're speaking, right? Lifetime value, CAC, and all these words. So that's what I would say. I mean, figure out what you're actually interested in if you're just starting out, and if you actually have some experience, what industry do you have the most experience in, and then focus on what you're good at, and don't try to be everything to everyone. Because the problem is, if you try to say, I'm going to go build $1 billion agency, the problem is this: you're going to get to a situation where you're just buying other agencies. You're playing the mergers and acquisitions game, and you're just adding other people, and you just have this Frankenstein culture, where you're just trying to make it a money machine. And to me personally, I think it might be interesting to other people. That is not that interesting. So
I agree completely. I think get your agency to $1 million in revenue and figure out how you can maximize profit at $1 million in revenue so that you don't have to work there any longer. And now you've got cash flow freedom and time freedom to go and figure out how can I deploy that more effectively than simply growing my agency. And we'll get to that before we finish up today. But I do want to ask some more questions. So let's say that someone's listening. Okay, great. I've got a client or two or three, but they're starting to bump into, I can't do all the work as well as find the new clients. There's that challenge. So they need to start building a team. What would be your advice for them on the baby steps on getting started to build a team?
Yeah, I'll just share what I did, and then people can take whatever they want to take from that and craft their own journey or story. So for us, so here's what happened with Single Grain. A year into it, it was basically my worst nightmare. We basically dropped all the way down to one employee. And basically what happened there was we're like, okay, well, the outside accounting firm called us and said, hey, you might have to shut things down. And so we're down to one employee. And I think your ask is more around the first hire, right? So that was very much the reset. And at that point, we're like, okay, how do we reset? So first, what we started doing was we started referring the leads out, and we started collecting good affiliate commissions. It was like, $300,000-$400,000 a year or something like that. And that was all profit. But we realized these agencies didn't do a good job of retaining these customers. So then we started working with contractors first, outside contractors that had experience that could manage the client as well. But then we realized, they were very much mercenaries, and they were never going to align with the culture that we were trying to establish. So the most important hire we made first was more so an account manager. That was kind of a hybrid. They could actually do the work. And once we made that full-time hire, things started shooting up. And, on my end, I could focus on closing. This was kind of the recovery. And I would say the next big impactful hire is there's actually a book called Rocket Fuel, and it's written by this guy named Gino Wickman, who wrote Traction, which we might have talked about on this podcast. But the idea behind Rocket Fuel is that usually the founder is a visionary, and they need to find an integrator, right? Whether you want to call them an operations person, whatever. Once we made that hire, we quadrupled, right? And at that point, we're just like, wow, okay, this person's going to help implement every idea that I have, and they're going to keep things organized. They're a detail-oriented person. They basically help complement you. So I would say first on my end, what I did was, hey, let's take the work off, let's take the account managing off, and then the big time hire would be the integrator.
So for someone who maybe is not an expert in SaaS marketing, what do you think of starting a Amazon brand management agency where you're working with young brands who know nothing about the Amazon channel, and you're managing their Seller Central account for them as a starting place? Obviously, you could expand your service offering beyond that. Of all the things that a rookie agency owner could do in terms of practice areas, if you had to rate that one on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
So in terms of opportunity?
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity. I think right now, you talk about Amazon, there's a website called Exploding Topics, and you can see what keywords are trending up and exploding. I think, you think about Amazon, you think about influencer marketing as well. I think these are great areas to attack. And I think YouTube still is a very big opportunity. You see a lot of people talking about YouTube creators. So I think there's a big opportunity right now, and gaming as well.
Yeah, I would agree. And folks, if you're listening and that is of interest to you, I am going to be, by the time this airs, there will be a webinar that we're going to be doing for that. So just check in the show notes. There'll be a link someplace where you can register for that webinar. Okay. So we're off the ground. We're starting to build a team slowly. We're working towards our goal of $1 million, and we want to make sure that by the time we get there, that you don't have any day-to-day operation in your business so that you can do some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about here in a bit. What are some of the other, because you've got hindsight to your benefit, what are some of the other things that you need to be aware of, or maybe some of the gotchas or potholes that you want to avoid as you're scaling from where we're at to the $1 million mark?
I think one of the biggest backbreakers is, obviously you want to give, people that are younger a chance to grow. But one of the biggest backbreakers for me was promoting people too quickly. So if you promote people too quickly, you want to give people the growth opportunity. You obviously want to promote from within, and they understand your business the best. But in some cases, you're actually better off hiring people that have the experience, right? You pay more bucks and you hire people that have more experience. So that actually might go against kind of what you're saying with the offshore stuff, but I'll give you an example. One of my buddies, his agency in the last 3 years went from 0 to 40 million a year. And it's just because they were able to hire some of the best people and pay them, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 a year. It's worth it, right? If they're able to come in, put in the right systems, the right processes, because they have the hindsight, they have the experience, versus having someone on your team make the mistakes. Some of the stuff is high risk, and it might take you, that might extend it by 2 to 3 years or so in terms of maybe where you're trying to go. So I think for me at least, every single time I've promoted somebody too quickly when they didn't have the experience, their talents would cap out when I knew very well that they would have excelled. They were excelling at their previous role, and you could have moved them up in that direction more as an individual contributor, but they wanted the growth opportunity, right? They wanted to go for it. And it has, majority of the time for me at least, failed. That's not to say I won't continue to, give people shots that are young. Actually, it's not my job anymore, but, the CEO's job is to do that. But, I've given him, the cautionary tale around that. So that's probably the biggest thing I would say.
Okay. And by the way, something I forgot to mention, folks, if you are interested in hearing another interview, but with an individual who has launched and grown a very successful Amazon brand management agency, you can search for episode 338 is one with a fellow by the name of Mike Begg, and he actually runs his agency down out of Guadalajara. And then another fellow that I interviewed on this topic would be Stephen Pope, and that's episode number 332. Both of them have been very successful building their Amazon brand management agencies. So I'm interested in your opinion, Eric. So you just talked about hiring rock stars versus promoting people too quickly. One of the things, I did a presentation recently where I looked at, and there was some data, there was average length of time that people stayed at the company they're at. And it was the who's who of tech companies on this particular slide. Yep. All the names that we would all recognize. And the longest amount of time that somebody stayed was 1.8 years. Uber was, the average was 1.12 years. So turnover, when you hire rock stars, yes, they can come and they can make a big impact. They're really expensive. They're hard to find, but they're not going to hang around that long. And so you're going to have this turnover issue. So I'm a believer that having great systems with slightly more talented than average, but not necessarily being dependent upon rock stars, is a way to create more stability in your organization. Do you have a differing view than that? And if you do, I'm interested as to why.
I think I do. I think, that's not to say, so previously I think I was more on your side. I think that's not to say I won't sway back in that direction. But I'm just realizing, it's, over the past couple of years, at least, when I shell out the big bucks and these people have stayed with me, and I can talk about, the whole retention, constantly dating and all that, culture, but, that's the program that they're operating on. But, so my opinion on this is, you hire someone that's really good. They're going to just lift things, right? They're not going to be asking you questions and taking time out of your day. They just want to go, right? If you're good, you just go, right? That's, some of the companies I've worked at in the past, it's just everyone knows what to do. Everyone's on the same page. We're aligning towards one goal and we're marching towards it. The problem is if you hire someone that doesn't have the experience, and they're not people with high agency. They're not necessarily people that are going to figure it out. They're very good if you tell them what to do, right? There's just different tiers of people and they're all very important. But when you need someone to lift strategically, they're worth the big bucks, right? And I think there's a time and place to have the people that are experienced mixed with maybe the formula that you have set up. I think that could be a very good setup.
And truth be told, I've taken a hybrid approach too. I did in my software company just hire the most expensive hire I've ever had, who's a VP of marketing. So I've got one of those, but all the other positions or not all, but most of the other positions that are going to report to me or report to her, we really lean on making sure we have great systems so that, in particular, as of late, I've been hiring people out of Mexico because they're on the same time zone as us versus, say, the Philippines, which I love having them on the same time zone. Their written and spoken English is perfect because in many cases they actually went to college in the U.S., but because Mexico is a lot less expensive to live in than the U.S., the labor rates are about 25% of what it would cost me to hire the equivalent level of talent and experience here in the U.S. All right. So now let's transition to the final part of our discussion. So we've achieved our $1 million milestone. We've got an agency. Our Launchpad is humming along. We've systematized things. We've put people in place. So now we have two things that we didn't have at the beginning of this journey. We have free time and we have investable cash. What next?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're interested in. It depends on, what your goals are. But for me, I just want to keep learning. I want to keep, teaching at the same time. And that's just leveling up, whether it's leveling up myself or leveling up in business. I just want to keep playing the game, right? Which ties in directly with the book, Leveling Up. And so, for me, it's transitioning more towards focusing on the highest leverage activities that I can do. And I was talking with another guy who's actually built up a pretty sizable audience, in 3 years. I mean, his Twitter following is about 400,000. His podcast gets about 2.5 million downloads a month, and he's really well known, in the last 3 years. And I was talking to him a couple weeks ago on my podcast, and then he was like, "Look," I was like, "What does your day-to-day look like?" He's like, "Look, the highest leverage thing I can do is to just create content, whether it's talking to amazing people, because then he might get deal flow, and getting ideas, and then he's just pumping out content. And because I have operators that run my businesses, I'm just focused on content right now, but that gives me opportunity to invest in tech like this over here, levels, potentially, right? Get to talk to the CEO, get to talk to a lot of cool people. And so that's one thing, that's deal flow. So that's kind of one of the things I work on, what can I invest in? And then also, how can I support the leaders on, for these companies, right? So let's say I go buy a business. Let's say I go to a website like microacquire.com. I can find some SaaS businesses there. They got some e-commerce businesses. I'm going to go buy it. Right. And I'm going to plug it in ideally to the entire audience, the ecosystem that I have, because I've got a great marketing audience. So ideally, I'm looking for MarTech SaaS because that's what I'm good at. Mm-hmm. So that's the investment thesis. It's very similar to what Berkshire Hathaway does with buying their companies, but at a much smaller scale. And then you have another company like Tiny Capital, which is what Andrew Wilkinson, who I mentioned earlier, he's just buying profitable internet businesses, and he's not trying to do anything too sexy. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's just what I'm good at. I stay in that lane. And the reason why I'm doing the book, by the way, is because I realized that, audience is one of the biggest forms of leverage that you can have. So, I got this marketing audience already. I'm going to go use Leveling Up to go build another audience that should be a lot bigger. And these people are going to get, these people are going to be America's or the world's future. And then, then we got some other people that we can kind of continue to serve and support.
So for folks, if you're interested in learning more about buying businesses, I do have a couple of other episodes for you. Episode 220 with Shakil Prasla. He has purchased many businesses. Episode number 347 with a fellow by the name of Ryan Nessen, who is doing an Amazon brand roll-up strategy. Episode number 275, building a portfolio of e-commerce micro brands with Bill D'Alessandro. Eric, have you ever met Bill?
Nope.
Super smart dude. Love his deal flow is among the most clever I've ever heard, and he actually talks about it in the episode. So if you're interested, check it out.
Everyone's gonna have to listen to it here.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so I think we can probably wrap here. So people who want to know more, we recommend go on Amazon, search for the book Leveling Up, right?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, one other thing before we wrap. You did talk about how you have massively increased your traffic to your blog. If you were to summarize your content and SEO strategy in a couple of paragraphs, what essentially is the strategy that you're following?
I mean, look, the two most important things when it comes to Google has not changed since the beginning. It's content and links. Sure, they're changing up a lot of stuff with SERPs. There might be some additional tactics you can do. But, that's what we did when the Single Grain blog was only getting 4,000 visits a month. We just started cranking out more content. And we would use a job board like jobs@problogger.com. And then we would also maybe that are influencers in the SaaS world or maybe influential in terms of marketing. We would do a lot of guest posts as well, just to kind of build up our link authority. We don't do that as much anymore. But we literally took that strategy where it's just we focus on content. Really good content, by the way, will naturally generate links. But in the early days, you kind of have to reach out to people. So you kind of have to go beg.
Yeah.
And then with our new, I'm a part owner in the survival blog. And that website gets about 5 million visits a month. So we took it from 0 to 5 million visits a month. And it's purely affiliate revenue. And it drives 7 figures in revenue a year. I think it's like, a couple $1,000,000 this year, which is great. But, at the same time, that it was more so focused on long form content because the industry or the niche was not. It's not super competitive, right? So what Google's always looking for is how can we fill our index, right? Because they're always asking how can we get more German content, more Brazilian content, right, or Portuguese content, because they just don't have enough stuff indexed. So if they see maybe you're attacking something that's brand new, then it's like, wow, okay, you might as well rank as the authority because you've got the best content there, right? So that's kind of like a little arbitrage there. But look, that's what I would say around SEO. But if you think about it, when it comes to any form of content marketing, whether it's SEO, podcast, YouTube, or whatever, I think, in a lot of scenarios, it's an 18 to 24 month journey. If you're really good, you might explode in the first year or maybe 6 months with YouTube, but that's typically not the case.
Do you use Brian Dean's skyscraper technique?
We do. Yeah. Okay. He's a good friend.
Yeah, I purchased his SEO That Works course this year. It's a very impressive course. So if you're not familiar with Brian Dean, he's from Backlinko. And if you don't know what the skyscraper technique is, just Google it and you'll find the answer. And it is a very, very clever strategy for creating content. So Eric, we'll finish there. Thank you so much for making some time to come and be on the show. If anybody listening wants to get in touch with you to talk about a business deal or partnering up on buying something or selling something or whatever, is your LinkedIn profile the easiest way, or how should they find you?
Yeah, you guys can all go to levelingup.com and get a free chapter there, or you can hit me up, eric@levelingup.com. Those two would work. Okay,
terrific. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. If you want to get to the show notes for today's episode, go to brightideas.co/350. All the links that were mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. If this is your first time listening to the podcast and you enjoyed this show, I would love it if you would take a moment in your favorite podcast listening app and rate, and review the episode. And I look forward to seeing you back in another episode soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much for listening to the Bright Ideas Podcast. Check us out on the web at brightideas.co.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.